So going back to our fancy 18 to 300 lens, we're talking about chromatic aberrations. You're not going to get, your aperture is probably going to be somewhere around 4.5 to 5 is as low as you're going to be able to get. It's as open as you're going to be able to get. But also, and I think this is something everyone should understand, is there's not like a one lens fits all.
No, there's not.
Lens out there. You can buy an 18 to 300, but
Nikon just made one apparently, like a 24 to 300. That is kind of okay. It's like $900.
Oh, really?
Like that. Yeah.
But I'm sure the aperture's still going to be somewhere around. It's got to be like a 5, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at this, yes, you can buy an 18 to 300, but the quality is going to be terrible.
Right. You gotta ask yourself what you're doing. If you're traveling, a lens like that is.
If these are like family portraits, or just family shots you're taking or whatever, that's great.
Yeah.
But and you got to kind of look at it in this lineup. You can get a lens that does or tries to do everything, poor quality.
Right.
Then you can bump up to something like a kit lens that doesn't do as much, but it's still going to be a softer image just because it's on the lower end of the price range, and the elements inside, they didn't take as much time to craft the parts that are in there because they can't afford to sell it to you at $200 and spend all this time and tooling and working on the optics. Then you move into like the L series lenses, and what is it for Nikon, the full frame?
Oh, they just as far as the name of it?
Are they EX or what were you?
Oh, let's see what we have on here. I think N.
Okay,
and this is the same in the 24 to 70 series.
Right, so you move up to a full frame
part of the Trinity
lens or an L lens, and you're going to get much better quality. And then, like you were saying, you bump up to that prime when you are set and you know exactly what you're doing as a photographer. You say, okay, I know I'm going to need a 24 prime, I'm going to need an 80 prime, I'm going to need a 300 prime, and these are the lenses I'm using. And you're going to have to move your feet, like you said, but those are going to give you the best quality. There's no way to beat that.
I got fortunate to shoot alongside of an actual outdoor photographer, works for like North Face and Black Diamond, and I was talking to him for an instant. And he's like, he shoots only with primes. That's all he shoots with. He goes, normally in news and stuff like that, people zooms because of flexibility, but if you want the best shot you can get, and he always shoots primes.
Yeah. So if you hear people say something like 24-70 2.8, and why that's expensive, why it's a big deal, this is a 24-70 2.8. That means it's 2.8 all the way through, from 24 millimeters to 70 millimeters, all the way zoomed in. It's going to maintain that f-stop all the way through. A lot of these lower-end lenses don't do that.
Like even this one, this is a great zoom, but as soon as you zoom in, it goes to 5.6.
Right.
And that's you got the 70 to 200.
Yeah, the 70-200 is another lens that's 2.8 all the way through, and this is an expensive lens.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and look at the glass on it. I mean, it's, big.
You guys comparing glasses?
Hold on, let's extend it. This is going to be foul.
So, but yeah, this is a really expensive lens. It's 2.8 all the way through. That means, like I said, 2.8, f-stop's 2.8 all the way through.
Right.
All your
to
ranges.
give everyone an idea, though, this is a 70 to 200, 2.8. These cost, I think, the last time I checked, about $1,800.
Is that the VR?
If you
that has the VR.
If you're not concerned about the speed, if what you're doing doesn't require you to shoot at a 2.8, you can actually pick up this lens for about $200.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you don't need that 2.8, and that's something you're going to have to figure out before you go out and start spending all this money. If you don't need a 2.8, if you're fine with 4.5 to 5,
if you're shooting with
then
a tripod,
you're going to save yourself a ton of money.
Yeah. If you know you've got a tripod, I mean, it really is. That's all you. That's why the 2.8 is so handy, is because you're able to handhold a lot more.
Yeah.
That's what I've always noticed by the the larger aperture. Oh, and really quick to give you an example, like your eye is kind of just works just like a camera. So like your aperture is kind of like your iris. How big the iris is, how much light it's letting in. So when you turn the lights down, your iris gets much bigger.
Yeah.
It is the iris.
That's your
pupil. Sorry, the pupil. Yeah. Sorry, and then messing something up.
That's right.
Giving you a bad description.
Right.
So your pupil gets larger for lower light, and then just how much, almost like blinking your eye. How much light you allow to let in is the shutter speed.
Right.
So I don't know. That's his way. I also read something. It's like having a bucket of water,
Huh.
and so like the bucket is so if you're pouring water into this bucket and the object is to fill this bucket up, and that's a good picture, is a filled bucket. Well, ISO is kind of like the size of the bucket, how much light it takes to expose, get that full bucket.
Right.
And so you turn the ISO up, you get a small little bucket. It doesn't take as much light to fill it up, and the aperture is like the amount of like the width of the pore that's coming in, and then the shutter speed is kind of the speed at which it's flowing. And it's how they
cool
a
analogy.
neat analogy. So you don't get as good a quality picture with higher ISO because you're not getting as much light
Right.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take as long to fill up, and so might be messing this analogy.
No, it's fine. We haven't touched on ISO at all, but that's kind of a different.
Which kind of
topic,
corresponds to
maybe.
this. It is totally a
Yeah.
different topic, but
Yeah,
it's one and the same with trying to get the proper exposure.
it is. Yeah. Lens hoods. A lot of these things
Oh,
have
yeah.
lens hoods.
Oh yeah. These this is actually the lens hood from the
This is
7200.
Yeah.
The nice thing about these, and I mean, you can buy lens hoods for lenses that didn't come with it, but if it needs to have one, it's generally going to come with it, especially if you're buying one from Canon or Sigma or Tamron. Now, the really nice thing you're going to notice about a lens that you pay $1,800 for is if the small details, like if you look at this lens hood, just a plastic lens hood, but if you look on the inside, there's actually it's almost like a felt material.
Yeah.
Because what these are actually used for is to keep the solar flare, the flare from coming onto the lens and ruining your image.
Yeah.
Even with a lens hood, though, that light can
yeah,
bounce
might
right
bounce,
off the
yeah.
inside of the lens hood
Yeah.
back in the lens.
Never thought about that.
So what
Yeah.
Canon has done is they put this felt material on the inside of these,
That's-
and it actually just absorbs that
Totally
sunlight
does.
so that it doesn't
It breaks
allow
up the
that.
surface.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow that to bounce off there, because if it were just a piece of plastic, even though it's black, it could still reflect
Yeah.
back
Like
in.
my third party Nikon here.
See, like that one.
Yeah. It's all reflective.
That's right.
Nikon's not third party, by the way.
No, not at all.
Sigma is, but Sigma makes its own lenses. The problem with Sigmas, and I've never had this problem yet, I still need to test that lens out to be sure, is that they have a quality control with focus. So sometimes the focus element is a little off.
Right.
And that's what you pay for when you go Nikon and Canon, is you're paying for that quality assurance. You never
Right.
have to check it.
Yeah.
You know, for an amateur or even professional buying a lens, you may not notice these errors right off the bat, and then in 30 days goes by, and now you can't send it back.
Right.
You don't have to really worry about that so much with Nikon
That's true.
and Canon.
Talking about the third parties and stuff, I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit. Canon comes with what's called IS, which is their image stabilizer.
Right.
Now, when you go to look at a Sigma, I believe they have IS, but they also have OS, which is optical stabilization. And it's a little bit different, and I actually have a lens with optical stabilization. And the way it works, and it's a little bit hard to get used to, when the camera goes to sleep, if you leave it on, that lens with the OS is attached, you'll actually hear a small tap inside the lens. And what's happening is, it's almost like there's an inner barrel in there that just drops.
Yeah.
In the
It's
the
floating
casing.
on a little
Right.
gyro type thing, yeah.
So exactly. So what happens is when when you're focusing, when you get your focal point on what you're shooting at, and I noticed this. I was trying to shoot this is 50 to 200. I'm trying to shoot a bird up in this tree, and it's a little windy. The branch is kind of moving. I noticed when I would hold for focus and do a half shutter that it was almost like my lens was kind of jerking itself around
Back in place.
in the viewfinder, and I was like, what in the world is... It kind of messes with your eye a little bit at first,
Yeah.
but what it's doing is it's trying to keep what you originally captured in focus in that same spot. So and even if you move the camera a little bit, when you breathe and stuff,
Yeah.
you'll see it kind of like wants to jump.
Floating.
Yeah.
And how does the image stabilizer work? What's the difference between the image and the optical?
Do you happen to have any explanation on the image stabilizer?
Not
The only
really.
reason I know about the
Me.
optical stabilizer is because when I saw it, firsthand, I was like, "What in the
Well,
world is going
this
on?"
has the same thing. In fact,
Right.
as soon as you hold, for
It
autofocus,
jumps up.
You feel it kick up
Yeah.
the internal like motor. It's like a little gyroscope. But what that also does is counterproductive if you have it on a tripod, because it's trying to find, like what you
Yeah.
said, he's trying to find the variance of the
Right.
image. If there isn't variance, it hunts for it, and it'll
Yeah,
actually
so,
cause
yeah,
image,
that happens in
image
video.
instability.
Yeah.
So if you're shooting with something with VR and you're using a tripod, turn it off because
Yeah.
it will cause
Yeah.
you problems.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
nice thing. All that stuff can be
Turn it
shut
off.
off.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth the investment to pay for VR all the time. If you're shooting with a monopod or tripod, it might not be, because it's like an extra like $500 now, because they've got
Yeah.
the
That's a lot.
they've got the 70 to 200 without the VR. It is half the cost. I would totally pay that versus
Yeah.
get the extra.
'Cause-
Well, you've got to
Not
think
made
too.
of money.
Again, this all goes back to knowing what you're going to be shooting as a
Right,
photographer.
right,
You,
yeah.
before you go out and spend thousands of dollars on equipment, you need to figure out what you're going to do with the equipment.
When I
That's
was
the biggest thing.
when I was young and I just got into photography, I got this thing. Now I think this is still a bad, awesome lens. Yeah. But I've only used it like a handful of times. This is a Lens Baby. This is one of those kind of like specialty purpose lenses.
Yeah.
Now they have filters that do this. One of them is a focal point. On One makes it. It's
Okay.
pretty nice piece of software. It ties into Photoshop. Does the same thing this lens does. But there's a uniqueness that this lens brings that you can't do with post operations. So this is a baffled lens. So when you focus, you actually have to compress it to focus it, and then you can modify the sweet spot. So if you have a bunch of trees and a person, you can actually pinpoint the focus directly on them, lock it in place, fine tune it, and then take a photo, and like the whole image will like kind of like tear towards that person or whatever you're focusing on. You really need a tripod to be using this. Otherwise, it's just going in and
Right,
out really.
sure.
There's no auto function. You have to manually put in the aperture rings.
Yeah.
There's like a little magnet that comes in here. You lift the aperture
Right.
ring out. So, I mean, I thought I'd be using this a lot more. Seriously, I've only used this a handful of times.
Huh.
It was like $200. I don't think it was, poorly spent, but maybe it was. I don't know. I'm glad I have it, but wish I'd use it more. So.
Yeah.
When you're getting ready to buy lenses, really make sure, like Bobby's saying, you know what your purpose is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll spend money, and I've read so many articles where people buy like the 1.4 50 millimeter. People
Yeah,
spend
that's what I was
that
about
money.
to. Yeah. I mean,
They never use it.
Right.
if you want to find out what 1.4 f-stop looks like, and you don't want to buy a really expensive lens,
Yeah.
you can get the Plastic Fantastic, the 50 millimeter.
Right. At 1.8.
1.8, yeah, sorry, 1.8. But yeah, that'll give you that really, really low f-stop, and you can play with that.
And again, if you don't need the 1.4,
Yeah,
you can get the 1.8.
1.8,
It
yeah.
is a plastic body,
Yeah.
it is.
but you get it for $100.
It's $100.
And it's arguably one
You're
of
not
the
going to
best
buy
lenses
any lens
ever.
that fast
For
for $100.
There's no
Yeah.
way.
Never. You'll never get a lens 2.8 or below
Yeah.
for $100.
Right.
And it's Canon name brand.
Yeah.
And these things are really tough. And the other thing I try to explain to people, I
Just drop it. Show them how.
Yeah.
Just throw it on the ground.
I've read a lot of reviews about the Plastic Fantastic. People complain, oh, it feels cheap and it's plasticky.
Of course
and-
it does.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
it
it's
feels
dollars.
cheap. It was a
$100.
$100 lens, but it takes great images. It takes really sharp
Yeah, it
images.
does.
It is a prime.
Yeah.
It is a 1.8. But here's the best part: it's $100. So if you do break it or lose it or whatever, it's $100.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and this is what I have a hard time getting people to understand. Oh, it feels cheap. I'm afraid I'm going to break it. This isn't a hockey puck.
Yeah.
This is a piece of expensive camera
That's right.
equipment. You're not using this to prop up the leg on your coffee
You're
table.
gonna break it. What do you?
Yeah, I mean
what
that's
are you
what I'm
doing?
saying.
That's a good point.
What other
Yeah.
lens? I mean, this is made out of some type of metal and
Weighs a
plastic
ton.
together.
Vibranium.
But I guarantee you that if you were to drop both of these, this one's probably going to break first.
I'd
right,
say
because
so.
the mass of it is higher.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That thing weighs a ton.
But again, you're going to treat this lens the same as you treat this
Absolutely.
lens because they're both a piece of expensive photography equipment.